So welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and start the session for today. Thank you for joining us for the 2021 Go Virtual Career Pathways Conference. This is our third and final day. So we're glad that you're here joining us. I am Lydia Campos from the San Diego County Office of Education, College and Career Readiness Department, and I will be your Zoom host today. Our room host today is Chloe Chen. She's from the San Diego Workforce Partnership, and she will be monitoring the chat. So feel free to use the chat to ask questions throughout the session, and they will be answered in the order that they come in. And at the end of the session, I'll be displaying an attendance certificate for those that need to take a screenshot or a picture with your phone if you need proof that you attended this session. And also I will be dropping a link to the evaluation for today. If you can please fill out that evaluation, that helps us improve our presentations as well as give feedback to the speaker. And with that note, I'd like to introduce Sarah Burns from the San Diego Workforce Partnership, and she will be presenting on career navigation and the changing world of work.
Thanks so much, Lydia. And hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. It's great to see you. To my San Diego comrades, I am joining you from the mythical world of winter. I am in the Northeast right now where, you wear sweaters even when you're inside and the heat is on. So I'm missing you all, but happy to be able to join you in our new virtual world. I am from the San Diego Workforce Partnership. I'm the director of learning there. And hopefully you're joining us because you don't know us very well and you don't know our resources very well, and you want to know more about how we can support you in your work as educators in learning about careers and supporting your students in navigating their career and education journey. That's what we'll really be talking about today. Our organization is what is called the Workforce Development Board for the City and County of San Diego. And these organizations are typically within government, but we work on behalf of our local governments, and we operate career centers throughout our county. We have job training programs. We do workshops. We do all kinds of things to support our local economy in developing the workforce that's needed to meet the needs of our businesses. So that really spans the gamut from youth to adults, programming, research, all kinds of stuff. If you need or want to learn more, we're going to be looking at a lot of different parts of our website today, but workforce.org is where you can find us. And that's where we'll kind of launch it off. So what we've really been doing is trying to go beyond the typical work of a workforce board where we get people in, we get them ready for jobs, and we get them into jobs, but helping people to think more expansively about, well, what is your whole career journey looking like? And how can we help you in different parts of that journey and help you to think differently about how you navigate it? And when we think about a career journey, I like to think of it like rock climbing. And so if you're not familiar, this is an indoor rock climbing wall. And if you think about the things that you need to get to the top of this wall, right? You need to know your strengths. You need to think creatively about which of the paths you're going to take. You need to know what it is that's needed to get to the top of that. You need to know when you move sideways, when to move up, when to move back down, right? This whole navigation, but there's the end of the day, there's a bunch of different ways to get to the top. And there's a bunch of training that you can do and a bunch of skills that you can build in order to get there. So our goal really in all of our work in the learning team is to lay that foundation so that people can build self-awareness and explore tools and learning strategies to help individuals on their career journeys. That's the way we'll look at it today. And how do we know where to start and what skills to build? And that's where we start with research. So if you are not familiar with the OECD, that stands for the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. And it's an international organization. It's about 40 member countries. And they do all kinds of policy and research work from economic to environmental, and all towards the goals of creating a better world for everyone. And they are really at the forefront of career readiness research. And when I talk about current research, I mean the most recent paper that came out of their team was released last week. And literally today, they dropped another piece that summarizes some of it. So I've done some adjusting to get the most current information possible into our presentation. I'll tell you a little bit about that. And here we are. So over the course of the last several months, the OECD has been pursuing this career readiness project, and they've released 3 working papers so far, and in total. And each of them looks at different perspectives of these 10 longitudinal data sets from 10 different countries, to see what are the indicators of teenage career readiness. So they're looking at what people are saying when they're 15 and where are they when they're 25 across the world, and what are the things that predicted their success and their economic and workplace outcomes. And these 11 indicators grouped into these 3 different buckets are what they found that at least 3 countries were indicative of better adult career outcomes. So you can see these 3 different buckets: exploring the future, experiencing the future, and thinking about the future. And when, as CTE educators and as educators in general, these are the things we're trying to work on with our students and help them to engage with as they start to navigate the world of work. So you'll see several things here that align with, what quality CTE programs and California standards recommend, especially in this exploring the future, right? Engaging with people through career talks or job fairs, these workplace visits, job shadowing, etc. Part-time work, volunteering. And then this last column, thinking about the future, is really the work you need to do before you can know what to explore in some ways, right? Or get ideas for what you want to experience in the workplace. And so just so we're clear on what all these things mean, career certainty is that ability to be able to articulate a career ambition when they're in high school. So saying, I want to be this thing, and being specific about that. And career ambition is the expectation of working in a career that is a high level in whatever they're doing, whether it's managerial or professional. Career alignment is when students understand the education that's necessary or the training that's necessary to reach their career ambition, right? So they don't say, I'm going to be a neuroscientist, and say, I'm going to get one certificate out of high school to do that. They know what it takes to get to wherever they want to be. And then instrumental motivation, that last one, is also kind of external motivation, but it is when students understand and are motivated by the career outcomes, that they understand that school is not a waste of time, that if I engage in school, that's going to set me up for what I want in the future, whether it's money, success, career. So these are the things that we have swirling around in our minds as we design our work, as we engage with the community. And as we go through some of the tools that we have available, these are the things that they can help you to foster in the youth that you work with. So actually, I'll pause right there in case there's anything in the chat. Okay, Chloe's on it in the chat. And Chloe, just feel free to interrupt me if there is anything that comes up. So how do we approach this career navigation, this helping students to think about the future and start to find their place in it? So this is what we call our ikigai. And ikigai is a Japanese concept that means reason for being. And this is how we've adapted it to align with sort of the world of work, specifically in the work that we do. And it's the idea that your reason for being in the workplace is an intersection of what you love, what you can be paid for, what employers need, and what you need. You can see some additional information on each of them here. And we help people to work their way through and understand how to navigate a career in context of this model. So when we think about this central, nirvana of the world of work, we want to help people understand and help students understand that it's not immediate, and once you get there, it's not even unchanging, right? That we spend time in all of these different regions, and just because you aren't in the center doesn't mean you failed. It means you're on your journey, right? You're on your way. We're constantly working to get here, but we're not always there right away. So for example, humor me in the chat and let me know, is there a job that you currently or in the past have had that fulfills what you can be paid for and what you need, right? Maybe it's something you don't necessarily love. Maybe it doesn't employ the knowledge, skills, and abilities that you want to employ that employers are looking for, but maybe some that you have. But it's what you can be paid for and what you need. And just tell us in the chat, what was that job? And I'm going to keep going and I'm going to come back to those because those are really always interesting jobs that we all, I think, experience at some point in time. So an example is maybe you are working part-time at a job. It could be in a restaurant or a grocery store. And maybe you're in school at the same time. So maybe it isn't what you love. Maybe it is what you love still. For example, I worked at Trader Joe's part-time and I loved it. I could be paid for it. It's what I needed. It was what employers needed. It was fulfilling this middle, all of the requirements of that middle piece. It might not for somebody else have been what they loved, right? It might have just existed in this part. But in life, right, our necessities change and what we're looking for change. So maybe I grew in what I needed, right? I needed to advance in my career in a different direction, or I wanted to. And so that perfect job was no longer perfect for me, and it floated and then existed into this bubble. So some examples. Yeah. And then we have someone who I just got a message in the chat, was a mechanic for 35 years, loved it, gave me control over my environment and paid well. So someone who existed probably in that middle, loved it, was something people needed. It's what it served the purpose of what he needed. So I'd encourage you to just think on that model a little bit and how it can help people to understand when you get to that point in your career, or when you're a student in education and you just don't know what you want to do, it can give you a way to navigate a little less overwhelmingly, where there are 4 knobs that you can turn to think about where you might move next. So we like to use this model. I'm going to go now into some of the tools that we have to support this model and these 4 sectors of our Ikigai to help people find their next move. So at this point, we're going to go on a little bit of a tour. And Chloe's going to be dropping some links in the chat. I'm going to be taking you to some different pages of our website so you can get a sense for what is out there. And our goal with these resources is to give educators and career navigators or career agents tools that they could take and apply in whatever way makes the most sense in their context. So that's one of the ways we do this. So I'm going to go to workforce.org/RIASEC first. And that is fulfilling that top left bubble of what you love. So if you're not familiar with the RIASEC framework, it's a personality vocational typology that directly correlates with the workplace. And you'll see it a lot in education and career education. You'll see it on onet.org. It's the way the Department of Labor categorizes all of the occupations that they track. But if you want to learn more, you can see that at workforce.org/RIASEC. For some reason, the wrong URL is here, but that's where we are. There's a quick video that is just a YouTube video. And then there is an overview of what it is, the different themes, and some information to help someone to understand what are their interests as step 1. As we move forward through that Ikigai model to the what you can be paid for and what employers need, learning about that labor market information, knowledge, skills, abilities, we go to another tool we have, which is workforce.org/career coach. So when you are, and Chloe will put that in the chat, workforce.org/career coach. And you see an example here of what you can find on the site. You can browse careers, and this is all locally specific data. So if I go here and I search specifically for nurse practitioner, I can click on that occupation, and I can know in San Diego or San Diego and Imperial, you can choose what you want to look at. What are salary expectations? How many people are hired each year? What are the programs locally where you can get trained for that occupation? You can know the skills, what will it look like in a daily task, and what kind of training might I need to get there? What kind of skills? You can see wages that you might start out at and wages where you might finish in your career. You can understand job postings and what that's looked like over time, what companies have been posting and how much they've been posting. You can see which companies have been posting for these roles. You can see what it's projected in the future and other things that this job might be called. For nurse practitioner, they're usually pretty standard, but employers use all kinds of names for the same job. So it gives you a sense of what you might look for. And then finally, you can look at live job postings. So as you're working with students and helping them to understand what's possible and what is local, this is a great place to get that data. There are other tools that provide state level or national level data, but this one is specifically San Diego focused. And that's why we create it, so people can do that local exploration. The other thing I will point out to tie this into what we just looked at in terms of interest is that you can also take an assessment, an interest assessment. And the more questions you do, the more accurate it will be. I've timed myself in the 60 question assessment, and I've done it in 3 minutes before, but probably takes more like 5 or a little more for students. But you can go ahead and answer these however you might. And then when you look at those careers or browse through the website, you can view career matches, and it will tell you what percentage match you have. So to help students to explore what is possible and to learn about things they might have never even known were careers that match with their interests, that's how they can do that. So therapy and natural healing, maybe I've never even known that was a job, but it's a 91% match for my interests. So that prompts me to learn more about it and to dig a little bit deeper. So this is a really great tool for that exploration about the future. All right, I'm going to pause there. Any questions, thoughts? Oh, and I see one more occupation example in our chat. Someone who worked in a restaurant for 8 years. I love that. Helped me learn, loved working with students in a high school age. And it was a job that made me realize I wanted to become a teacher. That's a perfect example of a job that's perfect for you at one point. Really helps you find your way around that model to the next place where you want to go. Thanks for sharing that, Lisa. All right. Next tool. So this is my next move, workforce.org/my-next-move. Not to be confused with ONET Online's My Next Move. If you've seen that site, they're different things. If you haven't seen it before, forget I said anything, don't get confused. We created this site really because we do a lot of research locally about our labor market. And we identify our local priority sectors. And we used to write sort of 40-page PDF reports that would share our findings. And some people did read them, many educators did, many economic development people, but really we wanted to create something that was more accessible to more people. And that's what this site is. It's a way to figure out like what is hot in San Diego, what's going on in our economy and in our local job market. And there are different ways you can engage with this site. We have our priority sectors to explore. We have priority jobs to explore. And then we have some profiles of individuals working in our priority sectors and some tools that link back to other resources that we have. And some of these link back to Career Coach as well. So if you explore priority jobs, we'll start there. Through our research, we set some criteria about paying self-sufficient wages, projections to grow higher than average, and having more than average job openings every year, right? So these are reliable and profitable jobs. And through that filtering, we identified 72 jobs that we call our priority jobs. And that's what's listed here. And once people click on them, it will take you to the Career Coach site that we just saw to get more information. But for the sake of exploring here, you can search by your interest, your IASEC interest, if you know it and took that quiz. You can pick a couple of them if you want to. You can pick a priority sector or an education level that you're interested in pursuing. And you can even search by salary. So a really great way to filter and to just get a sense of, based on my interest and what I want to do, what are some opportunities that exist in San Diego? So those are our priority jobs. The other way to explore on the site is through priority sectors. And these are our 7 priority sectors where there are at least 10,000 priority jobs in each of them. You can go into those in depth and look at that in a sec, but there's also a graph on this page that I like to draw educators' attention to, because when we're working with students and helping in that career navigation, there's a thought about what I do and what the company does. And we don't always recognize at first that those don't have to be the same. So an example of that is if you are a software developer, you might think, great, I have to go work at like Google or Qualcomm or an IT company. Whereas that's not the case. If you look at our 7 priority sectors represented by these colors, and you look at software developers or app developers, they're in every single one of the priority sectors, right? Even the smallest one employs about 200 software developers. So there's a lot of different ways that people can align what their values are, for example, with what they're doing. If you're passionate about healthcare and helping others, but you want to be a software developer, you can do that. You can do it in the healthcare sector if you want to. So ways to look at where those jobs fall in relation to the priority sectors is what this can help you do. And then, of course, you can dive into any of our priority sectors. Advanced manufacturing is one where I'll start with. You hear a narrative about manufacturing dying in our country, but that's not really the case in San Diego, where we have these really highly technical manufacturing jobs that have to do with life sciences in a big part, and our defense and communication and electronics manufacturing. They're very clean jobs. They are highly technical jobs, and they pay well, and there's a lot of opportunity. So there's examples of the largest occupations in the sector, what you can get paid for them. You can see there's a whole range. You can see what your interests it aligns with here. You can see what kind of education you might need for it. And that can give an opportunity to explore as well. Let's go back to Career Coach. You can have some ideas about how you might start your career in that industry. And then if you ever need like handouts that you just want to like give students to physically work with, there's something of those too, which takes mostly the information on this page and condenses it in case you don't have a 1-to-1 ratio of tools, for example. When I say tools, I mean like computers, devices. And then we also have these in poster version to give people examples of what's going on in our economy. So there's one of these pages for every priority sector. So as I mentioned before, in creating these pages, initially our strategy was create things that people can use in whatever way they want. So you can be creative about how you might turn this into a lesson or incorporate it in a lesson. And if you have ideas, feel free to put them in the chat and just share like, oh, hey, this is a cool idea. We've started to take steps toward developing things that where we can give you a little bit more guidance in terms of how to use it and how to exercise that in the classroom. So the next thing we'll look at was a collaboration that we did with the San Diego County Office of Education, our lovely host for this conference. And that's our essential skills rubric and our implementation guide. We have a reflection sheet. We have a Google Doc, Word, PDF version, all of that is on the county office's website at this address, which we'll drop in the chat. And it aligns. Sorry, I've got Windows blocking my, there we go. It all aligns with our essential skills poster, which you can see here. Through our research with looking at employers in San Diego County, looking at online job postings and analyzing that data, we found these 6 groupings of skills to be essential for workplace success. And you can see emotional intelligence, communication, actually might not be able to see because that's kind of tiny, but emotional intelligence, communication, creative and critical thinking, collaboration, dependability, and resourcefulness. And we've created these tools to help you really think through, what does that look like in practice? If I just go to the Google Docs version, you'll see that it prompts me to make a copy. You've got your own fillable copy. And you can go to any of these rubrics, and we have a 7th career development that looks at if you have a student, for example, or preparing students to go into a workplace, this is where that rubric is going to be really helpful. What does it look like to be workplace ready? Can break those down. But in general, you can see that these rubrics really help to break down, well, what does it mean when you tell me I need to think creatively? Or what does it mean when you tell me I have to collaborate? And I'm going to give you a little bit of time to think about some of these ones on your own for just 1 minute. And what I want you to do, we'll go to the cute version. What I want you to do is just look at this rubric, right? And think through just these top 4 criteria. Think about your last 2 weeks. And which of these was your strongest? Which of these do you have areas for growth? And just like reflect on it, jot down a couple notes if you want. I'm going to give you about 1 minute. I'm going to put on some soothing music. And we're just going to reflect on our last 2 weeks and how well you collaborated based on these criteria. Okay, so for this one, I want to see what you're finding. Feel free to unmute if you'd like. Feel free to type in the chat, and I may call you out to share. But I'll start with somebody that I know because I don't feel bad putting you on the spot. So get ready, Leslie, to tell me about how these things looked in your last 2 weeks. How did you collaborate successfully? Where's the room for growth?
Collaboration is daily for me. Areas for growth are, I would say, more often, like communication more often and sooner sometimes. Like I'm about to send you an email right now regarding some work we're doing together collaboratively in the region. And I thought, I probably should have sent this email yesterday. And it's not just you, it's to a bunch of people. But, for collaboration to happen successfully, you need to communicate.
Yeah. So when you're looking at these 4 criteria, I think the one that sticks out to me is applies technology and tools to improve group work and efficiency. So it's a great example of how using that technology and that tool differently could have made the group potentially more efficient or effective. That's a wonderful example. Thank you for letting me put you on the spot. I appreciate it, Leslie. Feel free to remute. Is there anybody else who wants to share something that they noticed in their reflection? So hopefully that exercise helped you think about what that might be like for a student, right? And one of the things that we created along with this rubric, we mentioned we are trying to create things more that give a little bit more explicit instruction about how to use a thing. And so for this rubric, what we've got is an implementation guide. So you can see that here. It gives examples for how you might use it in a group setting, how you might use it for self-reflection, different ways you might apply it in your work with your students. And then you can see, so looks like that. There's some cool stuff. And we've also aligned it to standards, the CTE standards, the math and science alignment for the Common Core, and the science standards. I always forget what all those letters mean, but NGSS, and so on and so forth. So that can help you to quickly align it with what you're teaching and think about where you might pull it in. And then finally, you can see the student reflection form. So if you want to have something, again, to apply immediately in your classroom, you can take this form and think about how you might use it. And we'd use this specifically for a showcase that we did on the essential skills, but you can really do it for whatever you want, right? It doesn't have to be a portfolio piece. It can be whatever it is that you applied it to. So broadly applicable, really awesome tool. Recommend that you take. I'm not biased or anything, but I think these are some really actionable and practical tools that you can use in helping students to navigate this world of work. Okay, so now taking a step back to, here are some tools and things that we created. How are we actually doing this, and how are we able to physically support? So one of those is professional development. Obviously, this is an example of that, but we work with schools on an individual basis as well. We do all kinds of things. We can do customizing professional development, all kinds of experiences to support educators in applying these concepts, in learning about them themselves. My background, I should have started with this. I started in the classroom as a high school math teacher for 5 years. And so I've been in the place where you might not immediately have time to know exactly what's going on outside of your classroom. So how can we equip you with those skills, with those resources? What we're working on now is an advisory curriculum, and it's meant to be a 6-part series, might grow more to 10 or 12 parts. And we're piloting it right now with one school and developing it in collaboration with them. But this is something we hope to make available to anyone to take and apply with all of their students. So if you're in CTE, then you have really special access and I guess leeway to have these conversations with your students. And so what might it look like where you provide an experience that's similar to across all of the students and not just those in CTE? Content integration. So doing more and developing more resources that align specifically with a standard or a topic that many teachers might create, or thinking about what are ways that we can start to collect examples of this done well to support our educators across the county in building and just integrating small career-oriented touch points into their instruction every day, right? Maybe it's like a quick 3-minute video about a career that you start the class with. Maybe it's a sentence or a quote, or maybe it's a whole project that takes several weeks. But what are the different ways that you can do this so that this isn't a one-time conversation? Because that's another thing that we find in the research, right? That one time is not enough. It's something that needs to happen regularly and consistently. And finally, programming. And I'll show you some examples of where you can find those resources for students if you want to connect them with the various programs that we have to support career development for youth. So talking about that advisory curriculum, these are the topics that are forthcoming. I want to put them up here to give you a sense of what it is, and also to give you the opportunity to share, what don't you see here that you would love to have in your ideal world, in your toolkit for supporting career exploration and career navigation for students in your current classrooms. And you can put that in the chat if you know right away, like, here's a thing I'd love to see. And also I'll share my email address at the end of the presentation so that you can send that along if you think of it and you just want to be in touch. But really starting, and you can see it really follows that Ikigai model, where we start with careers, we talk about, we start with interests and connect that to careers, online career explorations with the tools that we just went through, talking about our priority sectors and jobs, talking about those essential skills, which are in that sort of bottom left of what employers need, talking about what job quality looks like for every person, and then pulling it all together to think about how do you plan a career pathway, and how do you appreciate that you make a plan, and that does not mean it's the plan you're going to follow. If you've ever heard the Eisenhower quote, planning is essential, but plans are useless. That's one I think of very strongly in career development, where just the exercise of having the structure and going through the planning is essential to your ability to navigate long-term through your career, even if you don't follow that plan, which for most of us, I would wager is what our career looked like. We didn't set a plan and then follow those steps 1, 2, 3, but maybe we had a general goal. Maybe we had a short-term goal and we didn't really know our long-term goal yet. Maybe that came after experience and more exposure. So that's what this curriculum is meant to do. And we're hoping it's really a plug and play that anybody can take and apply and use immediately. So again, if there's anything else you want to see there, let us know, because that will really help us to make sure we're creating the best tools for you. And then in terms of programming, that last piece I mentioned, if you go to workforce.org/job seekers, and this box, explore programs, that's going to be where you want to start if you're looking for those sort of that first column of experiencing or exploring the future, and actually exploring and experiencing the future for students. So there we go. This page, you can go and explore programs and learn more. And if you want to just start a quiz to enter a bunch of information about yourself or about your students, you can do that. But if you go to browse all programs, our programs usually start at age 16. And you'll see there's like tons of programs for different ages. I think I already searched this. Let's refresh. So all of our programs are there. There's tons of different stuff. But you can just put in an age 16, and that will filter so you see all the programs that are available starting at age 16. And so these all do different things, and it really depends on our funding sources and our various priorities. So for example, this first one is, you can see job readiness training, coaching, mentorships, paid internships, and post-secondary education. This is a really great opportunity for people who live in the city of San Diego. When you click in a career, you can see what's required. That's because it's funding directly from the city of San Diego that says this is for you who live in the city of San Diego. So if you are an educator in the city of San Diego, this is a great opportunity for any of your students who are age 16 and up. And so you'll see there's different topics. Behavioral health is one of the examples. Sometimes it's different populations, just as involved young adults. Sometimes it's for students who are currently in school. Sometimes it's for students who are out of school. So you can kind of explore them, get used to them. And I highly recommend just like taking some time to read through them so that when you connect with a student and understand an interest that they might have, you have these at the ready, and you are able to say like, hey, check this out. I know about this program that could support you in your journey. So there's a ton, and it's always changing because we are constantly getting new funding, developing new programs, and working on different approaches to support our community and our youth. The other thing I'll show you actually while I'm on that job seekers page is this, our Ikigai module. And we just have these 1-minute videos about each of those different sections of the Ikigai. So if you just want to introduce career navigation, you can play these videos. And I will just play the last one is what I will play for you, because we didn't really talk closely about job quality because we are still developing tools that people can use directly to explore job quality. So for you, to help you understand a little bit more about that module of the Ikigai, I'll play this one video for you to see.
A good job includes 3 key components. 1. Job necessities are the basic things that protect workers and help them provide for their families. This includes a living wage, stable schedule, and safe working conditions. 2. Job opportunities help you grow and develop. They differ based on the needs of the organization and your knowledge and experience. This can range from hands-on learning to mentorship, classroom training, and everything in between. 3. Job features, such as benefits, align with your individual circumstances and career goals. What you want will likely evolve over time. For example, you may wish to earn as much as possible, even if it means longer hours. Or you may prioritize schedule and location flexibility for work-life balance. Each person's situation is unique. When selecting a field of study or applying for a job, consider what is most important to you. You can gather more information by reviewing postings, asking questions in an interview, or talking with a case manager. Or learn more about what job quality characteristics various careers and industries offer by engaging with current employees or reviewing information on the labor market.
All right. So that's a little window into what those videos are like. There's one, again, for each part of the Ikigai, and they're just useful introductions to each of those modules. Okay, so we're bringing it home now. We have a couple more minutes, and if there's one thing I can leave you with, first, you can see how, again, in these 3 buckets, exploring, experiencing, and thinking about the future, really a lot of those resources are helping students to think about the future and figure out where they might start. But once you get into the programming, that's supporting those first 2, exploring and experiencing the future. But that one aspect, that one indicator of career readiness that you always have within your control is this one, and that's career conversations, right? Including with teachers. So whether that is during class, whether it is in the middle of an activity or just in a passing period in the hallway or after school, you have the ability to create or support better outcomes for all of your students just by having conversations with them, right? Just by asking them questions about what they're interested in, by helping to either expand their horizons or help them to decide that there's something that they aren't interested in. You have that power, and these are the tools that you have at your disposal to support those conversations and to connect students to those next steps. So that is what I'd leave you with. I think we have a couple of minutes, if there are any questions, any thoughts, if you're interested in reaching out directly, that is my email address. And there is tons of stuff there. Okay, great. I see a question in the chat. So how is our site kept up to date? So the data on Career Coach is updated quarterly. So all of that information about wages, etc. And job postings, I think, are live. They're just pulled directly in from Indeed. So they're really connected. Adding new tech possibilities as they become known. So here is where there's a limitation on what we can do, because we rely on the data that's available from the Department of Labor, from the EDD, which is the Employment Development Department, which is the California agency who handles our labor market data. And the Department of Labor, they redefine careers every 5 years. So they have an opportunity to add a new category every 5 years. So the data doesn't move as quickly as industry. And so that's where Career Coach is useful, because it tries to at least expose students, and it includes more detailed careers than we have full data on. So those come up, and that's updated quarterly, but we don't have full data about it. So it's sort of a balance. We can sort of share the job titles and some data about, I'll give you an example of environmental engineer. That's an industry, that's an occupation that we don't, and when I say we, the EDD and the Department of Labor don't collect data on in a broad way. So when you look at data for environmental engineer, what you actually are seeing is data on engineers all other. So kind of catch-all category for specialized engineers. So that's a little bit of a tangent into the labor market data. I will not nerd out in that too deep for you, but all that to say is there's new titles added, but we're kind of limited by the data that we have. So we're trying to do more profiles of individuals, because that helps us to understand what actual jobs look like beyond the data as well. And then that's all evolving as we work. All right, so I think, Lydia, I've left about 5 minutes for you. I know you wanted to share some other information. Again, reach out if you have anything that comes up later, but I really appreciate you all. Thanks for sharing your time and attention. And hopefully this was useful for you today.
Thank you so much, Sarah and Chloe. Great presentation. I went ahead and dropped a link to today's session evaluation. If you can please fill that out and give us some feedback. And just a reminder that at 4 o'clock, we have the Deputy Superintendent from Innovation, Dr. Tony Smith, who will be speaking. So we encourage you to attend that. And I will drop the link in the chat. It's also on your schedule in Sched. And then I'm going to go ahead and display the attendance certificate now, in case you need to take a picture of that.